What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's weekly video time. This is fast becoming my most enjoyable and anticipated part of the week, and I hope it is yours too. This week I've been asked by one of my good mates, Matt, to talk about cardio for fat loss, what the different types are, why you do them, when to do them, and the best ones to do, best combinations, etc. I think it's a great question because I think there's a lot of information out there, a lot of conflicting information out there. It's hard to know what's right, what's wrong, who to believe, who not to believe, and I think it can get really confusing trying to pick the type of cardio that you do and when you want to do it. And I think a lot of people ask themselves that question. I'm therefore going to try and clear up a few points, and hopefully by the end of this video you guys will have a much better understanding of what the different types of cardio do, how to do them and when to do them, and how to incorporate them into your fat loss routine. Let's do this. I'm going to kick this off, unfortunately, by stating the obvious. As much as probably a lot of people who are watching this video don't like to do cardio, we have to do cardio to a certain extent for optimum fat loss. Yes, abs are made in the kitchen, but for the purpose of this video, I'm purely going to be talking about how we can use cardio to facilitate that fat loss, especially for those stubborn body parts. For me, it's around my midsection. It's always the last to come in and the most difficult to shift. Adding cardio into your fat loss routine will greatly help in getting rid of those stubborn fat stores. So firstly, let's talk about the different energy systems that your body uses when it comes to cardio. So the first one is aerobic, which means with air. So as the name suggests, your body uses oxygen to create movement and to create energy. Now, aerobic exercise utilizes fat as its primary fuel source. Yes, it will use some protein, some carbs as well, sometimes a combination of all three, but fat will be its main go-to, which is why doing aerobic exercise is a go-to for fat loss. So the next one is anaerobic, which, as you can probably guess, it's the opposite of aerobic, which means without air. And this source of energy predominantly uses carbs and the breakdown of carbs, which is glycogen, as its fuel source. So let's start by breaking down what aerobic exercise is. So aerobic exercise is essentially defined as repetitive exercise which is hard enough to increase your heart rate and use oxygen as its energy system. It would typically be done at a moderate intensity for 15 to 20 minutes or more. This is also often referred to as LISS or steady state cardio. These are probably terms that you guys have heard before and might be familiar with. So examples of this are things like rowing, walking, cycling, skipping, swimming. There's loads and loads of examples. I'm hopeful that with that brief list you guys will get a good idea of what we mean by aerobic exercise. So the good thing about aerobic exercise is that when you break it down, it's much wider than the boring treadmill indoor gym cardio that's become generalized with LISS and aerobic exercise, and that most people tend to do every time they hear the word cardio. Because essentially all aerobic exercises, as I've just said, is something that you can do for an extended period of time and that raises your heart rate. So essentially you can do absolutely anything you want for aerobic exercise. It doesn't have to be your standard running, walking, cycling or whatever, so long as it raises your heart rate enough and you can do it for 15 to 20 minutes or longer. So the next question is, how high should you raise your heart rate when doing aerobic exercise? Now, the average teenager and adult's resting heart rate ranges between 60 to 100 beats per minute. For an activity to be classed as aerobic exercise, you want to aim to be between 50 and 70% of your maximum heart rate. Now, how do you calculate your maximum heart rate? Don't ask me why, I just know this is the formula, but you take away your age from 220 and you'll get your maximum heart rate. So for me, my target range whenever I'm doing LISS cardio is to aim for my heart rate to be no less than 95 and no more than 135 beats per minute. So as I mentioned earlier, fat is the body's preferred fuel source when you're doing any sort of LISS training, because it has greater fat stores which are more easily mobilized during the exercise as opposed to carbohydrates, which is why steady state cardio or LISS cardio is people's go-to generally when they're looking to burn some fat. Now, going back to anaerobic exercise, this is defined as short bursts of intense exercise that can last from anywhere to a few seconds up to a maximum of 2 minutes. So examples of this would be weightlifting, so powerlifting, sprinting, HIIT training, which stands for high intensity interval training, and that can be absolutely anything so long as it's based on intervals of high intensity and low intensity. One of the great things about anaerobic exercise and high intensity interval training is that because of its high intense nature, you can burn a lot more calories within a shorter period of time than you would with low intensity aerobic exercise. However, because anaerobic exercise uses carbs, i.e. glycogen, as its main source of fuel, it's not as efficient as aerobic exercise at burning fat during the exercise. However, what it lacks in burning fat during exercise, it makes up for later on. Now, what I mean by this is that this type of exercise will send your metabolism through the roof for the next few hours after training, and some people even say for up to 24 hours after training, which is obviously great because it means that you'll be burning more calories throughout the day. So when you get to that stage in your diet where your metabolism naturally slows down because your body is trying to regulate itself with having less food to perform everyday functions, it's a great idea to throw in some HIIT sessions into your training to really give your metabolism a kick up the arse and get it firing properly. But one thing I would mention is to try not to overdo it, because unfortunately, even though its high intensity is its strength, it's also its biggest weakness, because the nature of it, high intensity, it takes your body a lot longer to recover from that type of exercise, which is hindered even further by the fact that the people who generally do this, other than athletes who are sprinters and do it for fitness, etc., the people who burn fat will be in a calorie deficit, and so your bodies will take longer to recover anyways. So throwing in too much HIIT in there is only going to make that worse. Right, so to conclude, both have their merits, and I believe that both should be utilized. So here's what I like to do, and here's what I think is the optimal way of utilizing both during your training when you're trying to burn fat. So at the beginning of my cutting cycle, because my metabolism will still be running normally, because it hasn't had to slow down yet to take into account that I'm giving it poverty calories, I will mainly try and only utilize aerobic training, LISS, steady state stuff to really target that fat. And that's something that I will keep throughout my whole cutting diet. My preferred time to do this, there's no right or wrong with when you do it, because as I said, its primary fuel source will be fat, so you will be burning fat regardless of the time of day that you do it. But I find the optimal time to do it is fasted first thing when you get up, because when your body's fasted, it's even more likely to utilize those fat stores for its fuel, because it physically won't have anything else to draw on in your body because you haven't given it a pre-exercise meal to draw its energy sources from. Then once my metabolism slows down, when I get to the really low stages and the really late stages of my diet, I will throw in a couple of HIIT sessions in there to skyrocket my metabolism again and make sure that it's running a lot faster throughout the day so that I can burn some more calories. I wouldn't tend to do more than 2 or 3 of those sessions a week, because as I said, your body takes a lot longer to recover from those. So that's it, guys. That's my advice. I hope I've been able to shed some light on the different types of cardio. I hope you guys are better educated now to be able to incorporate cardio confidently into your cutting routines. If you'd like me to clarify any of the points that I've mentioned or go into more detail in relation to anything that I've mentioned today, then please drop me a message and I'll be more than happy to do another video for you. And equally, if you guys have any suggestions for next week's video, or you'd be interested in my opinion for any other topics that you guys might have, then again, feel free to drop me a line, leave me a comment on the video, and I'll be more than happy to make some more videos touching on that. As always guys, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe the video and the channel for more videos. Peace!